And this system of monopolies that you have today, represented by these wholesale markets, enclosed to only a few, and the retailing controlled by the people who control the wholesaling, which in this country happens to be non-Muslims. All that to break that through and to liberate the people of this country from their own. The marketplace is the solution. And if you want the Malays to rise up in their own country, you don't need to give subsidies. We don't want little loans. That's not the way. But we demand that an Islamic government, when it may come, establishes imarates throughout Malaysia and throughout Nusantara. Because only in the conditions of open marketplace, the monopolies can be completely eliminated. Only then to be followed by these caravanserais that you hear about. The caravanserais and the hostels for trading, tourism of Islamist trading. The people went for knowledge or for trading. They didn't go to see what was going on or to the beaches. Our tourism is trading. And the people went to places and they traded, and then at the same time they visited the people. So tourism for us is income, not just expense. But in order for that to be reestablished, and here's an idea, is how the caravanserai should become the future of the Islamic way of traveling. Not these hotels that you have today, but caravanserais. And the caravanserai is a hostel designed for the caravans. It resembles like a courtyard, a huge courtyard, where the people will display their goods in the courtyard, in the arches of the courtyard, and they will live above. And normally they will store what they have in the back of the arches, and they bring it forward following the tradition of the Ottoman markets. And after 1 week or 2 weeks, they will go and another caravan will come in, and this is the rotation that perpetuated the system of caravans in Islam. A tradition that is as old as the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If you want to know what is the Sunnah profession, is to become a trader in a caravan. This is the profession of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The caravans are mentioned in Quran. So I don't think it makes it more clear than that. And you may ask yourself, and where are the caravans today? When I asked this to some people, they told me, no, today we have Indofood. Indofood is the largest monopoly in Indonesia. They sell 70% of all the food produced by our people. Of course, owned by Singaporeans. I say Singaporeans because although they have Indonesian passports, they do not belong to us. They live in Singapore, the country that has been built upon the robbery of Indonesia. And you have to know that there is a way of doing the things in Islam, that it doesn't resemble the way of doing things today. Were we to be ignorant of this matter, we will resemble people who are fighting against the ghost. They are protesting in the streets against the things that they don't like, but they don't have a solution. If by an art of imagination, which often entails the interest of a third party, the people were, in their protest, able of achieving what they want, which is to take power, they will find themselves helpless again, without no knowledge of how to put the things right. But this time it will be their own people doing it to themselves, like what happened in South Africa, while the white regime was oppressing the black people. It was at least clear who the enemy were. But when the black people took over and they found themselves the same practices, but now taking place by black millionaires who had been before workers in trade unions, mine trade unions, that then became millionaires overnight, and they were doing exactly the same thing to people. But this time they say, no, but at least I'm making the money. And that's what these people in this government say. There is a few Malays making millions, and they say, but at least it's me. Look, I am Dr. Mohammed. Aren't you happy that I am making the money? They say, no, we are not happy that you are making the money. We are disgusted that you are making the money. Because you should be working for us. And instead of that, you are just working for yourself. And these people have no shame. And there is only one punishment for them: expropriation. This is the word that they have to learn. Expropriation. They want to hear what Islam is? We will whisper it to their ears very clearly, or loud if they want to. Expropriation. You will be expropriated. You will have nothing. For what you've done is outrageous. And what you have robbed, it will have to be back to the people. Expropriation. And the bourgeois don't like expropriation. It's a word that they hate. Because they want to negotiate. They say, no, just take 20%. Okay, 50. No, 60%. No, 0. That's what you get. 0. Unless they come back. Unless they come back to the way of Islam. These people have become nothing but exactly the same than the people who before them in the colonial days brought the shame to this country. And they were the first people to rob us. They are nothing but the continuators of the same spirit. Except they think because they go to the television and they say Alhamdulillah with no heart. No heart at all. No sentiment. Just a word. They throw it just thinking that everybody is going to listen to them. They think with that they can appease and to keep everybody blind from the robbery that is taking place. Only the restoration of the Islamic model will change things. Protesting in the streets will not suffice. And when these Arab revolutions took place, everybody was hoping that something was going to happen, something was going to change. How is it going to change? Have you heard what these people are proposing? Have you heard what the Ikhwan Muslimin is proposing? What they will have is Islamic banks, and Islamic credit cards, and an Islamic IMF loan, and an Islamic inflation, and an Islamic national debt. And for that they have plenty of ulama ready to give fatwa under the great sultan of the ulamas, which is Yusuf Qaradawi. They will be remembered for being the chairman of about 25 Islamic banks for his own share. And how about the people of Egypt who went to the streets in order to protest from these people who had been tyrannized on them, this evil Mubarak who wasn't in power before? What will happen to them? They will find themselves exactly the same position we find ourselves in. There will be, certainly, there will be some new people making money, but the model will be exactly the same. And this is because if you want to understand where all these problems come from, you have to go back to the end of this period, to the end of the Ottoman Empire. And to understand that critical moment of history is fundamental for us to understand where we are today. For the same groups that they are ruling today, and they are the voice of Islam today, they were at that critical moment of history representing the very opposition to Islam. Starting with the evil kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And let's say clearly, so that there is no doubt at the moment, the evil kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Let's start with the word Saudi Arabia itself. Since when the land of the Arabs belongs to a family? Not even the British will dare to call England Windsor, England. And yet we have to hear Saudi Arabia, only to remind us, for those who have intellect, and they have a heart, and they have courage in their heart, only to remind them that this is an occupied land When you hear Saudi Arabia, that is exactly what it means. It's occupied Arabia. And there will be no peace, and there will be no order, and no restoration until this family is expropriated. Expropriation. That's what is going to be the end of all that. Expropriation. For at the critical moment of this turning point in history of the Muslims, a critical time for us to remember, to know precisely, and not to forget, at this moment where this system of imarates, this system of civic Islamic society was destroyed by groups that they wanted the installation of a new model of society. They wanted to modernize Islam. And that was the word that today they call Islamization. In those days it was modernization. Saudi Arabia were traitors to Islam. The Saudi family fought against the caliphate. They are rebels. They were rewarded with the occupation of the Muslim lands of Arabia for the service rendered to the British Empire. They fought with British arms. They killed pilgrims. And they fought against the institution of the Caliphate, having declared by the Ottoman Empire, not just rebels, but Murtada. They had been declared infidels. They had left Islam. This is who had become, in the eyes of many, the orthodoxy of Islam. It's like saying the Leninist party of Moscow is now the new orthodoxy of the Catholic Church. That's what they have done. And with that mindset, and with all the Muslim countries crawling at the feet of the Saudis, nothing can be made clear. So when you see these great governors of Muslim countries shaking hands with these Saudis, it's only to remind you that they are part of the same. They belong to the same. They have no interest or no understanding of the matter. And you will say, no, they do it for diplomatic reasons. No, they do it because it suits them. Because they did it only for diplomatic reasons, they would at least, in their private affairs, explain to their own people who these Saudis are. Instead of that, they invite them, they send their children to Medina University in order to become Wahhabis, in order to come back exactly with the same principles. And that this society and the modernism of the Ikhwan Muslimin had a big influence on the Wahhabis and vice versa is another element that you have to take into account in order to understand what is happening today. And if you go back to this moment in history, this critical moment of the turning, the end of the Caliphate, the end of this system of imarates, if you go back to that critical point, you find that the forces that they were fighting against the Ottoman Empire, they were all known as constitutionalists. Constitutionalism was the code for being anti-Caliphate. And some, like the Ikhwan Muslimin, they say, no, we want Caliphate. And some people mistakenly think, oh no, they were in favor of the Caliphate. No, they were in favor of a constitutional Caliphate, such as the King of Spain, for example. That's what they wanted. So the constitution being the law of the land. And the people who were pushing for these reforms to take place were a bunch of degenerate Muslims, sold out, who had sold their soul to the evil. And Christians and Jews, and many of them were Freemasons. Secret societies that they gather in order to plot. Okay? And some of them we know, some of them we don't know.